Hello, Stargazers! I am your magician, but you can call me Esther. And today I'm joined by...
Mayuma wonde arimakiren, guys. I'm happy. Hello, it's me, Rose.
This bitch came in here and started talking about umemusume, bro.
You started call. You started call talking about umemusume. I don't want to hear it from you.
I was playing umemusume, a based horse.
I know, like both of us were just silent playing umemusume.
No, yeah, the two of us spent a solid like 30 minutes before stream just like silently playing in call. You were playing, yes. Hello, everybody. No more umemusume. Stay on gold ship. Yeah.
No more umemusume.
Oh my god. Actually, you know what? We haven't started yet. Babes, I wanted Smart Falcons so bad. Cause like, okay, listen. For those of us who don't play umemusume, the new horse girl game, Smart Falcon is the newest horse on the gacha. And she's like an idol and she's so cute. I'm very weak for idols. and I saw her and I was like, ugh, I want her, but there's so many umas in the future that I want because like you could see them on the Japanese server. And I was like, no, I don't need to. And today I was like, oh my god, but I want her so bad. So I looked it up. I looked up her stats and some website was like, oh, she's a must pull because she fits a specific niche in the game, the dirt niche, because we only have like 2 dirt characters out of like our cast of like 40. So I was like, oh god, okay, she's another dirt character, fine, I'll pull her, I'll try. And so I do 110 pull, and I get 1 2-star, which is the worst luck, and then it flips, and I get like the fiery Tokai Teo, which surprised me. I do another 10 pull, and I'm like, okay, you know, I don't want to use up like all of my pulls. I get like two stars, which is better luck. And then one of the gray ones flips and then flips again. And then I get her. I get Smart Falcon. And then later in the same 10 pull, another gray flips and then flips again. And I got Special Week. So I got three stars in 2 10 pulls, which is very lucky. How many subs to buy a real horse? Like 10 million. Like, I'm not buying a horse. How many subs for a horse stream? If you're talking about playing Unsettling, I've done one already over on my Twitch.
Yeah,
to horse girl or not to horse
follow
girl.
her on Twitch too.
Yeah, you should follow me on Twitch. My Twitch is in the description. How long have you been playing Uma? I mean, I literally started it on stream, so like
fairly recent.
Yeah, so maybe like a little over a week. Oh my god, I saw some like mega whale on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like when I say mega whale, I mean like mega whale. Like pulled like 5 copies of all of the support cards and shit. And their
Holy shit.
and their fucking team rank was D2.
Me.
Mine is C1.
Like I would go for that would happen to me.
Mine is C1. Like, how do you whale that much and only have a D? Anyway, could Rose steal one or could you summon one? Oh, a horse? I mean, I live out in the middle of like a forest. There's a couple people who have horses near me.
I will steal a horse.
Can't whale your way to being skilled. I guess not. Welcome in, Barn. Anyway, on that note, enough talk, enough horses. No more Hans.
It's time for mushrooms.
If y'all want to, oh, let me turn off my cursor. If
Noise in the air, wrong poison.
Wrong, toxic spores. If y'all want Unsettling content, go over to my Twitch. I might stream it sometime. No more horsing around. Mushroom time. All right. So last time, we went walking in the woods, and we met a mushroom.
The girl.
I mean, not an actual mushroom, but I mean, from the advertising,
we met the girl.
We met the girl. We don't know that she's a mushroom yet, but she's a mushroom. I love inhaling pretty girl spores. Me too, man.
Me too.
The rain had let up somewhat when Ethel picked her way back home, but it hadn't abated yet. A fine smattering of raindrops continued to fall from the obsidian sky, drumming disaffectedly against the foliage above and about her as Ethel tramped through the forest. The ground was muddy and uneven, and Ethel had to take great care with every single step she took. One wrong move could easily spell a sprained ankle and muddy knees, bruised and bloodied palms. The rain struck Ethel's scalp. It trickled down the nape of her neck. It stuck her clothes to her skin and chilled her to the bone. By the time Ethel finally managed to make her way back home, more than half an hour later, she was sniffling. Ethel shed her shoes at the front door and shed her coat not long after. Her shirt, her skirt, and her socks all went the moment she made her way to the bathroom where she ran herself a bath.
Yes!
Oh, pretty.
This is a gorgeous CG, actually. Wow.
I really like this CG.
I saw the artist tweeting this one and I was just like, oh man, it's beautiful.
Then she sunk into the tub, sighing with relief as she submerged herself within the awaiting water. If there was one positive to being caught in the rain, it was that taking a nice, warm bath always felt better when chilled right down to the bone marrow.
True.
Ethel could feel the bathwater restoring life to her icy body. It was refreshing, rejuvenating even, and she sighed in dazed relief from it. Ethel almost believed, as she curled herself up inside the tub, that she was being reborn. The water was restorative. It would help her shed her old skin butterfly-like, so she could emerge from the bath as a brand new girl, a more confident, conventionally pretty girl, with smooth skin which had never known a spot, and hair which wasn't quite so prone to tangling. Her old skin, her old shell, would lie like a deflated balloon in the bottom of the bathtub, gray and bloated and swollen from the soapy water. Ethel would deride it. Then she would discard it. God, Ethel wished she could step out of her own skin, if only for a few brief, glorious moments. But when she finally pulled the plug and stepped out of the tub, the rest of her body came with her. Every last fold and every square centimeter of skin. Well, so much for that. Ethel towed her hair dry, pointedly looking away from her reflection as she did, and pulled on her pajamas. These pajamas are so cute. Sleeping in oversized shirts is like the best way to sleep. I love how thick her hair is. Oh my god.
Me too.
It's so pretty.
She's so pretty.
Wake
Also
me
it smells so real.
Then she retreated to her bedroom, which wasn't really hers. Not anymore. This art looks so lovely. I know! Go check the description. You can click the game, and then you can find the artist from there. Then she retreated to her bedroom, which wasn't really hers. Not anymore. I think I said that. It was Manny's. He had remade this room in his image, and Ethel didn't much like what she saw. It was a room which was obviously meant for a teenage boy, so much so she felt like an interloper. Manny might not have been there to chase her out of his room, but his disdain lingered. She didn't belong there. Oh my god, more CGs.
God, girl, you're so beautiful.
Literally. I get why the mushroom girl fell for her.
Feeling displaced and disoriented, she lay back on Manny's sheets and let her eyelids fall shut. Aster likes the care. I know why you love Hana. Literally. Had the events of that night really happened? Had the girl truly kissed her? It was hard to say. Everything had unfolded with a subtle sense of surreality, with the girl's voice light and irreverent enough to mirror the beating of a butterfly's wings. Now Ethel had put some time and some distance between herself and the girl. She found it even harder to believe what had happened. What reason would the girl have to loiter about at St. Catherine's so very late at night? It didn't make any sense. And it made even less sense that the girl had kissed her. Ethel found it hard to come to terms with Clementine's affections when her girlfriend, or no, ex-girlfriend, had confessed to her, but she found it harder still to accept this girl's feelings. Clementine's septum has been pierced. She had dyed her hair pink. She had kept a Tumblr blog long after Tumblr had stopped being cool, and in her childhood she'd written fanfiction about Sam and Dean Winchester from Supernatural kissing. Wow!
Hello!
Clementine hadn't been perfect. Clementine had been more than willing to admit that she wasn't perfect, and she'd since disavowed the problematic fanfiction she'd crafted in her heady, uncomplicated teenage years.
I can't believe this is a real, line. Hello? What the fuck am I reading?
I mean, I don't know. I think especially like 10 years ago, there were a lot of people writing just really. Oh wait, hold on. I haven't read this. Apparently, she'd been too young and stupid to know not to make the two brothers make out for several hundred words. Though she had sounded rather proud when she told Ethel that one of her immature, incestuous efforts had garnered a whopping 207 kudos on AO3. There'd been something reassuringly human in Clementine's flaws, in her dark roots, which showed through her pale pink hair, the gap in her front teeth, and the way she snorted when she laughed. Clementine had been brash and loud and brassy, and she'd intimidated Ethel when she'd first met her at their university's writing club.
They met at the writing club? That's crazy.
Yo, I mention. Ethel had never imagined that a cheerful, outgoing, interesting girl like that would ever care about her. But she'd been prepared to believe that Clementine was still an ordinary girl like she was. A girl who was made of flesh and blood, who could laugh and who could cry, and who could laugh at herself and talking about her old, embarrassing fanfiction. The girl at the church, however, was different. Oh my god, speaking of fanfiction, I used to write it. I don't really write much anymore, but I used to write fanfiction. And, supposedly I was such a good judge of character that, at one point, the creator of something that I wrote for read my fanfiction and said, "This is so in character, I've actually written a scenario that's almost just like it."
Oh my god.
Which was pretty crazy. That said, my like really old stuff when I wrote when I was like 13, 14 is just bad. Like, seriously? Yeah. Supposedly I'm a good judge of character.
Insane.
I'd love to read some salacious Aster literature.
No!
Come on, drop the year free.
No.
Oh dear. Aster. Fuck.
The girl at the church, however, was different. She was so pretty, she seemed almost otherworldly. Was she really human? Ethel couldn't imagine the girl at the church crying. She couldn't imagine her blushing. And she definitely couldn't imagine her shipping Sam and Dean Winchester. The girl seemed removed from petty concerns like fandom drama.
What the fuck?
What interest did she even have, anyway? How did she fill her free time beyond kissing complete strangers in churches late at night? Ethel tried to furnish a past for the girl, some sort of backstory, but kept coming up blank. Like the awkward pieces of an old jigsaw puzzle, nothing quite seemed to fit. The girl was an enigma, just like the woman from the famous Byron poem that literature professors still talked of 2 centuries later. She walks in beauty like the night. Who was she, though? Where was she going, and what was she thinking? Perhaps she wasn't going anywhere or thinking anything. The woman who walked in beauty never managed to arrive at her destination. How could she when she didn't have one? Beautiful people didn't need to do. They only needed to be. I keep on cutting things off, I'm sorry, but this reminds me, or this line in particular, reminds me of a TikTok trend that's been kind of going around lately, where it's, I wonder if I talked about this last stream, actually. I feel like I talked about it recently. But, it was kind of talking about how in, like, a lot of people who are not conventionally attractive didn't have people come up to them for their looks. So they often just don't have that great of a sense of humor. Like, I saw one TikTok that was just like pretty people in their 30s who never developed a sense of humor, and it's just like, oh my god, this orange is so cute. I'm gonna name him Bob. Like, how they're just like their humor is like 2 decades old.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just feels a little shallow. I have met people like this. Not a lot though. Anyway.
I don't think I ever met anyone like that either.
Ethel lying depressedly in bed. Nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday.
Ethel was unsure, however, if the girl really was. She didn't feel real. None of that night had felt real. Ethel, meanwhile, felt far too real for comfort. Her hair was still wet from her bath, she hadn't dried it thoroughly enough, and it was soaking the sheets. It felt like there was a damp towel pressed against the nape of her neck, and it made her squirm. It wasn't exactly comfortable, but she was too tired to get up and dry her hair again. Much too lazy to hunt for her mother's hairdryer. She'd simply leave it be. Slowly, as she lay there, sleep began to creep up on her. It clouded her senses, dulling them, until her thoughts felt oddly hazy. Ethel could still hear the rain as it fell outdoors, but it was very faint and indistinct, hardly audible. The soft pitter-patter of these scattered raindrops mingled with the sighing of the breeze, Ethel's own exhalations. Once again, Ethel thought of the strange girl and her strange kiss. It must have been over an hour since the girl had brought their lips together, but Ethel's body was still burning. Her thoughts, meanwhile, continued to run into one another, all of them blurring together into an incoherent, indistinct mess. Ethel saw Clementine in her mind's eye, with her sweet smile and her fluffy pink hair, but she was beginning to skew, to twist, to split apart. Like a reflection viewed in a film of water's undulating surface, Ethel couldn't pin it down. One of Clementine's eyeballs fell out of its socket. Her mouth began to melt. She was starting to shift. Ethel wasn't picturing Clementine, not anymore. It was the girl from the church instead. Ethel saw her vivid eyes. She saw her pale skin. She saw her legs, so slender like a ballet dancer's. She thought of how those legs had swished back and forth like metronomes. The girl smiled at her. Then, Ethel's consciousness failed her and she fell asleep. Ethel's sleep was anything but restive, however. In her dreams, which were faint and half-formed, she was in the forest again, flanked on all sides by walls of dark, damp vegetation. The forest was pulsing about her just like a living creature. It throbbed, and Ethel felt her own heart throbbing in tandem with it. She was running, her bare soul sinking into the dirt, though she had no idea what she was running from, didn't know what was pursuing her. What was it that chased her in the dark, lurking amongst the trees? Ethel thought to turn her head, if only to discover the identity of her shadowy assailant, but she couldn't afford to let her attention wander. Tripping and falling would spell disaster. Ethel continued to run, on and on and on, her heart hammering in her chest all the while. Her hair fluttered as she skirted the trees and her long shirt billowed about her. She turned this way and that, searching desperately for an escape. A part of her already knew that it was too late. Her shadowy pursuer was fast approaching. It was much quicker than she was, and she could never hope to outrun it. She could never outpace it. It would find her, and when it did, its lips would curl upwards in the corners, its teeth sharp as knife points glinting in the moonlight. It would sink its fangs into her neck, then it would tear out her throat. She would scream, of course, as she oozed red-black blood, and then... Suddenly Ethel stumbled. Her right leg had snagged in the root of a tree and she fell. She tumbled forwards, her arms flapping, her eyes wide and afraid, but she didn't hit the ground. Good morning. Instead, she woke up, tangled amongst her sheets like a fish in a net, gasping for air. Her face was uncomfortably flushed despite it being another cold morning, and her palms were slick with sweat. There was an unpleasant taste in the back of her mouth, like mold or decay, and her tongue felt oddly furry. Had she forgotten to brush her teeth last night? Ethel tried to cast her mind back, but she couldn't. Her mind felt like it had been scrubbed clean, her thoughts a vague, hazy blur. The back of her head hurt. Her limbs were aching as though she really had been dashing through the woods in a desperate bid for her life. But the remnants of her dream were fast beginning to fade, exposed to the daytime light which was filtering in through the windows. Ethel sat up, then pressed her palm against her forehead. It felt clammy. Was she getting sick? She hoped she hadn't caught a fever after wandering about in all that rain. I'm not liking where this story's going. That's silly. She didn't want to prove Mr. Browne right. Not she supposed that it mattered all that much. She doubted that she'd be seeing him again. Ethel blinked, her eyelids heavy, and stared at the wall of the bedroom. A bedroom which had once been hers, but was no longer. Most of Ethel's old furniture remained. The bed was still her old one, and so was the wardrobe beside it, but Manny had transformed it in her absence. Ethel's old books and her journals and her little collection of ceramic fairies had all been thrown out, replaced with trophies from Manny's various football matches and his favorite sports manga. At least Ethel's old swivel chair, salvaged from a friend of Jude's who'd meant to throw it out, was still there. Ethel's ancient PC, however, had been chucked, replaced with a brand new model with a translucent case, which lit up like a display of pyrotechnics. Ethel could see traces of her old life in this room, but they were few and far between. The times had changed, and they moved right past her. She didn't belong here. She was no longer wanted. Had she ever been? Ethel sniffed. The wall blurred and she had to wipe her eyes fiercely with the back of her arm. What is wrong with you? Sharply, she scolded herself. Stop thinking too much. You'll never get anything done like that. Ethel pressed the heel of her palm against her eyes so hard her vision blurred. Then she forced herself to stand. She threw aside the covers of her bed and set about her day. Not that there was much of the day left. It was already 1 o'clock. How could she have slept for such a long time? At university, she'd gotten into the habit of waking up early in the morning, at least 8 if not sooner, for her lectures. She'd been letting things slide at her parents, maybe because she'd gotten into the holiday spirit. She didn't have any lectures to attend, so there was no real reason for her to get up with the rising of the sun. She didn't have anything to do, nor anywhere to go, full stop. This thought was depressing, though, as was the realization that she had only about 3 hours of sunlight left to her. The days were so short lately, the nights so long. It was cold, too. Ethel shivered as she changed out of her pajamas and into her casual clothes, the same sweater she'd worn last night and the same shapeless skirt which she had left to dry on the radiator. She didn't care enough about her appearance to rootle about in her suitcase for any other clothes, and everything hung up inside the wardrobe now belonged to Manny. Once she tied back her hair into plaits, then she set about her day. Woo, yay. She meant to work on her thesis. She would work on her thesis, but first she needed to have breakfast. Or lunch, given how late it was.
This is awesome. We're just getting a little glimpse into her daily life.
Yeah. Also, I love how she said, "Oh, I almost lost all my days. It's 1 p.m. I'm here like, I woke up today at 2 p.m."
I mean, she does live in Britain,
Because
Britain.
I mean, it's January, and also in winter the days are really short over there.
Yeah.
Ethel made herself a cheese toastie in the kitchen, using the toastie press that her father always forgot to clean, so crumbs kept getting stuck in it. Ethel made sure to check the press for moldy crumbs very, very carefully before she stuck her cheese sandwich between it. Ethel ate her toastie and sipped at a cup of peppermint tea she made herself. But this wasn't enough to satisfy her appetite. All of a sudden, she felt ravenous. She made another toastie, with ham this time, bright pink like sunburnt skin. And she ate that in silence too, with a second cup of peppermint tea. Ethel even thought after that ham and cheese toastie she could go for a third, but it was here that she stopped herself. There wasn't much bread left or much cheese, and she didn't fancy checking to the corner shop. She wasn't in the mood for human interaction. Hey, go see the girl. She's not human. Hehe.
True.
Ethel washed the toastie press in the sink, if only to stop herself from daydreaming about a third toastie, and set it on the rack to dry, alongside the butter knife in her plate. Whoa!
Ooh.
Very pretty living room. This task accomplished, she brewed a third cup of tea, there were still plenty of tea bags at least, then took her mug to the living room. She'd work on her thesis...
Her what? Her what?
Her mug.
Yo.
Mugman?
Death game my majority.
She would work on her thesis later. She still had time. First, she wanted to see what was on the TV. There's nothing wrong with that, was there? She needed to relax. Ethel flipped through the channels, but nothing caught her fancy. They were mostly showing old Christmas movies, the Santa Claus and the like. It was appropriate, Ethel supposed, given the season, but she wasn't in the mood to watch any Hollywood actors wearing fat suits ho-ho-hoing.
Real as fuck. I love her.
For want of anything else to do, Ethel wound up rifling through the DVD shelf. Manny might have thrown away her old wind chimes and her fairy figures, but her DVDs were still here. The box sets of Buffy and the Vampire Diaries and Doctor Who. Oh man.
Oh
After
my
some
god.
deliberation, Ethel settled on Supernatural.
The fucking Supernatural.
She'd seen the series through multiple times, but the adventures of the Winchester brothers always cheered her up.
She wants a different kind of ho-ho-ho. That's crazy ink.
Please.
Thank you for the $2. The series was old and it was definitely corny, but that's where all of the appeal was. It was fun, and that was something Ethel's life severely lacked. Ethel watched 5 episodes of the first season of Supernatural, then made a start on the 6th.
Oh my god, they're on the TV.
She paused
Okay.
at intervals to make herself fresh cups of tea or to snaffle snacks from the kitchen. Then, before she knew it, the day disappeared. When Ethel checked her phone, she saw it was almost 9 o'clock. Where had all the time gone? Ethel gnawed worriedly at the end of her plate as she weighed up her options. It wasn't too late to make a start on her thesis, she supposed. She wasn't tired, despite it being pitch black outside. largely because she'd woken up so late herself. She could still make some progress if she applied herself. She just had to focus. She could... Ah! Ethel's thoughts were soon interrupted, however, by a ringing in the kitchen. It was the rarely used landline. Somebody was calling her, but who and why? Wasn't it a bit too late to receive any calls? Part of Ethel hoped, stupidly, that it was Clementine, calling at long last to check up on her. She soon dismissed this thought, however, as a fleeting fancy. Clementine hadn't spoken to her in over a fortnight. Ethel couldn't see any reason why she would do so now, not if she hadn't bothered to call during Christmas or on New Year's. There was nothing special about the date. It wasn't anybody's birthday. Besides, if Clementine had wanted to call her, she would have called Ethel's ancient Samsung. Ethel's mobile had been silent all day, however. And the day before that. And the day before that. It wasn't as though Ethel had no friends, even if her social pool had dwindled significantly after she'd broken up with Clementine. None of them had wanted to check up on her, however. It wouldn't be a friend, then, who was calling. It was far more likely to be her parents. The phone kept ringing, the sound shrill and unpleasant as it echoed inside Ethel's skull, and she winced. Alright, I'm coming. Ethel got to her feet and shuffled her unenthusiastic way into the kitchen. Then she removed the phone, a bulky, boxy thing from its cradle, and held it to her ear. "Hello, this is..." asked the mom. You do it.
Alright. Oh, hello there, honey. I'm glad I finally got through to you. It took a minute. I was worried I was having trouble with the connection. I texted you a couple of times, but you didn't reply. I was starting to wonder about you all alone in the house. How have you been? Are you hanging in there? Everything's okay, isn't it?
Ethel took a step back, unnerved by the sudden deluge of words from the other end of the line. She wasn't sure how to answer this. How had she been hanging in there, metaphorically speaking? She was still alive at least, but she didn't necessarily feel it. Her sleep schedule had been so shot, she still felt half awake. Or maybe that should have been half asleep. There was a pause, and then... I'm... fine, I guess?
That's great!
Effie? Yeah.
Effie, okay. That's great, Effie. I'm glad things are going well. What time is it over there? It's 8 here, and we have only just woken up. We'll be on our way down to Bricky soon.
That was very like Lauren. She had a way of infantilizing her own speech, breaking down words like one might when talking to a baby, regardless of whom she was interacting with. Ethel did wonder sometimes, when she was feeling especially cynical, if this was a habit Lauren had picked up from TikTok, in her attempts to make her videos suitably inoffensive and toothless. But Lauren had always been like this, long before becoming a micro-influencer. She had embarrassed Ethel plenty during her school's parents' evenings when Lauren would, without any trace of irony, ask whether her then teenage daughter had been a good girlie who'd not been up to any mischief.
But I'm waiting for Manny. You know what he is like in the mornings? He's awful for it.
Oh yes, I know. Ethel knew this only too well. She'd been on the receiving end of many sour stares more times than she could count over the last couple of years, when she'd come back to her parents from university. Manny had been sweet enough when he'd been a child. Ethel could still remember the way he'd clung to her, begging her to play with him. But he'd undergone a drastic transformation once puberty had hit him. His skin hadn't turned green and he'd not sprouted any antennae, but he had become surly. So much so, Ethel sometimes wondered whether her parents shouldn't have called him Moody instead. Manny had also become something of a night owl. It wasn't uncommon for him to stay up until the early hours gaming. Wow.
Yo,
Sounds familiar.
a gamer! Shut up.
He would commandeer Rowan's old laptop when Ethel was at home, and he could no longer access his fancy PC. But he said it was too old to run his favorite games properly, that it stuttered and lagged. Being parted from his gaming PC always put Manny in a bad mood. And when he lost a match on Rowan's laptop, his cries of disappointment would filter through the thin walls of the house. Looked like Manny was up to his old tricks even in Australia, but maybe the jet lag could be a contributing factor of his inability to wake up. Well, whatever the case, Ethel didn't begrudge her mother for having to wake him. Although, now that she thought about it, the task of waking Manny up had probably fallen on Jude's capable shoulders instead. They were a lot bigger than Lauren's. It's almost 9 here, Ethel said in response to her mother's earlier question, a reply which, though Ethel could not see it, was sure made her mother blink.
In the morning, dear?
No, in the evening. It's pitch black outside. Australia's 11 hours ahead of the UK, remember?
Oh, yes! 11 hours! You're always on top of these things, Effie! You're such a smarty pants!
I don't think so.
Oh, but you are! Don't be so hard on yourself. You have to learn how to take a compliment. Now, how's that thing that you have been working on?
Thing?
Yes, you know, the thing. The thing from your unit. The... What's it called again?
You're referring to my thesis?
Yes, that's right! Your thesis! How is that going, baby girl? Well, I would hope. You did miss out on coming to lovely Australia after all for it.
Oh, everything's alright, I guess.
That's great, honey. I'm glad to hear it. Your mother's rooting for you. You have got it.
Lauren might not have understood what Ethel was studying, but at least her support was genuine. Ethel knew that her mother really was rooting for her, regardless of what happened. They were about as different as it was possible for a mother and daughter to be, but Lauren's love for her daughter was sincere. Ethel was quite fortunate, really, to have a pair of parents who did care about her so much, even if they didn't understand her. She appreciated everything her parents had done for her, but that only made her feel worse for fudging the truth. Why couldn't she be more honest?
Well, I'll leave you to it then, my little genius. Study hard, but not too hard. You know what they say, a work and no play makes Effie a dull girl. Go and have fun if you can. Not that there is much to do around Oxbury, I'll admit. Still, you could always get a car. Maybe go for a drive to Marsden?
I can't drive, Mum. I didn't pass my test.
Oh, yes, my mistake. Still, you're almost there. Even I can drive and I was hopeless at school. Miss Pike always said I was a sticker than a brick wall, and she was probably right. You should be able to manage your driving test easy peasy. A clever clocks like you. There's nothing to it. Just don't kill anybody and you'll be golden.
Thanks. I'll, try to keep that in mind.
Atta girl! Now I must be off. It looks like Jude's finally managed to get Manny out of bed. And about time too! He was sleeping like the dead. I'll speak to you later, Effie. Have a nice rest of your night. Not that there is much of the night left. Ta-da now!
Yes, bye-bye. There was a click on the other end of the line, then there was nothing. Lauren had gone. She left her sad, serious daughter who was sequestered away in their too small home in the grey and desolate Oxbury, and returned to the sea and the surf of exotic Australia. Well, the sea and the surf would come later, probably. First, Lauren and the others would be going down to the dining room, where they would eat their fill of fried sausages and fried mushrooms and baked beans. Ethel frowned. Her mother ate just as much as she did, if not even more, but she was skinny as a post. Ethel, meanwhile, couldn't look an English full fry-up without gaining weight. Oh my god! Ah!
I hate people with metabolism. They piss me off. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is me. This is me. Like, oh my god. Ugh. Mood? No, literally. Like, people who can just eat and eat and eat and eat, and it's like, huh? No, I'm not gaining any weight. Like, I just want to strangle them.
I'm so jealous of those people.
Literally. Oh. Life could be so unfair. Ugh.
Speaking of food, Ethel could hear her stomach rumbling. Maybe it was time to root through the fridge again. With some luck, she should be able to find something worth eating. Ethel commenced her search, and was soon rewarded with some spoils which looked promising. At the back of the fridge, covered with a taut layer of cling film, was a shallow baking tray full of her mother's cherry pie.
The realest thing ever said, Queen.
Thank you! Thank you for the $2, bunny! Lauren wasn't the best cook. She tended to wing things, and her culinary creations always ended up overcooked or underdone as a result, but she was a surprisingly decent baker. Lauren's grandmother, Ethel's great-grandmother, whose name she'd inherited, had taught Lauren the arcane art when she was younger, and Lauren had always been very close to her granny. Lauren had taken her granny's recipes to heart. She had practiced and perfected them for birthday parties, village fetes, and charity sales, until her brownies and blondies and chocolate chip cookies became the talk of all the mothers at Oxbury Primary. Lauren had stopped baking quite so much once Manny had grown up, but she still liked to dabble from time to time. That was where this cherry pie, sitting on the bottommost shelf of the fridge, had come from. Lauren had been anxious the night before her flight. She was afraid of heights and terrified of planes, and hadn't been able to sleep. Not knowing what else to do with herself, she'd gone downstairs at 2 in the morning, wearing her favorite pink nightgown, which made her look a bit like the stuck-up poodle from Oliver and Company, and she'd begun to bake. When Ethel herself had awoken later, much later, at 1 in the afternoon, her parents and brothers had already left for Luton Airport. They hadn't awoken her to wish her goodbye, though perhaps they hadn't needed to. They'd said goodbye the night before, and in any case, Lauren had left her daughter a note. "We've already left for the airport, love," she'd written, the loopy cursive. Lauren's spelling wasn't the best, but her handwriting was a work of art, picked out in patchy blue biro. "So don't worry about us or wonder where we are, I'm sure we'll be fine. Couldn't sleep last night, so I made some cherry pie. It's cooling in the fridge right now. Have as much as you want. If you don't, it'll go to waste. Love you, Effie. See you later. Stay safe. XXXXX." That was one of the things Ethel liked about her mother. They might not have seen eye to eye on a lot of things, but Lauren wasn't exactly stingy with her affection. Ethel allowed herself a small smile as she took the cherry pie from the fridge. It had been a few days since her parents had left for Australia, and she'd been grazing on the pie in their absence. It wasn't as good as it had been. The crust had lost some of its crunch, the cherries inside their contradictory sweet sharpness. But it was more than edible. There was only one slice left, and Ethel meant to make short work of it. She slid the remaining slice of cherry pie on an old IKEA plate, which she then shoved inside the microwave. She let the pie rotate in the microwave for a couple minutes before drawing it out. The center of the pie had cratered, and the bright red cherry filling looked almost garish. It was streaked across the plate, bright enough to be obscene. The darker pieces of cherry, mixed among the lighter, more inoffensive sauce, looked unnervingly like blood clots. Ethel was reminded rather forcefully of the toilet bowl during her period, and her stomach turned. Maybe she wasn't as hungry as she thought. For a few moments...
Oh man, this reminds me of my period.
TMI, girl? No, that's real as hell. No, oh my god, there was that one, still struggle with it, sadly. Have to be fastidious and make sure to get to the gym. Ugh, good luck. No, I remember... there's like one scene in Jujutsu Kaisen where there's like a red liquid dropping into like this blue ocean thing or whatever. And somebody was like, this is what it looks like when I go to the bathroom on my period after, like, they put that cleaning, like, that blue cleaning fluid inside the toilet. And I was like...
Okay, man.
I saw that and actually just, like, I was almost crying. Like...
Oh my god.
Crying
Okay.
help. No, literally. For a few moments, she considered scraping the cherry pie into the bin, but she discounted the idea. She didn't want to throw away her mother's hard work. I'm just a girl by no doubt intensifies. That's all that you'll let me be! Ethel took the cherry pie to the kitchen table, then sat down. She began to eat, trying to force all unfortunate associations with the lopsided pie on her plate and the toilet bowl to one side.
Stop!
But this soon proved to be a difficult endeavor, especially when a strange, musky taste spread across her tongue. Ethel's nose wrinkled. What was that? It tasted like Jude's compost heap in the middle of the garden smell of dirt and decay. Ethel sampled her mother's cherry pie numerous times in the past, even the less than perfect pies which had burned on the bottom, but it had never tasted quite like this. Ethel swallowed her mouthful of pie as best she could, then she examined it. It looked normal at a cursory glance. But a quick excavation of its underside with the tines of her fork revealed something rather alarming. The crust, which encased the pie, once a uniform gold, had endured a troubling transformation process. The pie crust was flecked with discolored patches, ghostly white, and, more worryingly, a sickly lichen-like green.
Was that mold?
Ugh. Ethel's stomach, which had felt uneasy ever since awaking, lurched. She felt like she was going to be sick, but she didn't want to be. Just like some people felt faint at the sight of blood, Ethel couldn't stand the sight of vomit, a fact which hadn't made her very popular at Madeline Dawes' 6th birthday party. Madeline enforced them all to play a game overseen by her mother, where the participants had to stuff as many marshmallows into their mouths without gagging. One girl, Naomi, had managed a whopping 21 marshmallows before her gag reflex had kicked in. She'd thrown up a horrible pastel pink semi-thick sludge which had oozed, not trickled, down her chin and onto her frock. Ugh. Naomi's vomit had smelled awfully acidic, but it had been sickeningly, cloyingly sweet at the same token. Her vomit semi-solid and full of pillowy pastel chunks of marshmallow. Been the smell of it more than the sight of it which had turned Ethel's stomach. Her innards had twisted like kneaded dough. Then in sympathy for Naomi, she had also vomited. This had triggered a chain reaction, and by the end of Madeline's party, 4 children had emptied the contents of their stomachs all over Mr. Dawes' newly installed cyber and white carpet. Oof!
Oh god! Oh, that's terrible.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Ethel hadn't been invited to Madeline's house again, though Naomi had. Ethel had always found that unfair. Naomi had been the one who'd thrown up first. But maybe it didn't matter who'd done it first. It mattered that Ethel had, because she'd only ever been there under duress. A pity invitation sent by Madeline's mother, because she knew Ethel didn't have any real friends at Oxbury Primary. Madeline's mother had soon stopped pitying her after that great vomiting incident, however. This memory brought a fresh flush of shame to Ethel's face. She swallowed the bile which was rising in her throat thick and fast, and pushed the moldy cherry pie to one side. Then she leant back in her chair, pressing her hands to her cheeks, trying to force herself to breathe. What was she supposed to do with the rest of her time? Why is this game so base, so direct? This is very refreshing for Ebby's works. I mean, maybe it's also just because, Ebby writes a lot of very different genres. So it's not the first time that she's written something that takes place in the modern day, but even for that, this feels very modern. And especially also since all of the Yuri stuff that I've played from her on this channel has always been a little bit like removed from reality, or like takes place some like hundreds of years ago or whatever. Like,
or a fantasy world.
Or a fantasy world, like, yeah. So this is very grounded. It's a refreshing experience.
I like how she talks about the fandom experience too. I think that's also very refreshing.
Like, I think it's one of the first times I've seen it referenced so directly in a visual novel. Epic writing is very vivid. I ended up going to play Your Glass Heart in my hands after you left the VOD on a cliffhanger. Sorry! Would anyone mind telling me what happened last stream? Not much, honestly. This, as you can tell, this game's pacing is very slow. But, so basically, Ethel's parents left to go to Australia. They left her behind, mostly because she felt like she wasn't worthy, kind of like her family's presence. She always felt like kind of the black sheep, like she wasn't very appreciated. And so she gave the excuse of, I'm going to stay, and write my thesis, which she is not doing.
Yeah.
And, and so one of the first nights that she's alone, she goes into the woods and, like, to just take a walk and clear her head. It starts to rain, and so she tries to find shelter, and she goes to a church, where she meets a girl who is very pretty, very mysterious, and this girl kisses her. Yep. They have a very, like, kind of heart-to-heart conversation. We meet this girl, they kiss, and then she leaves. That's all we have.
Amazing.
We don't know this girl's name. And you can tell from the advertising and also the UI that the girl is a mushroom, but Ethel doesn't know that. I thought you said this game was grounded.
Know she's a mushroom.
It's mostly grounded.
I mean, they have like very explicit like pop culture references. It's nice. Yeah. Others can be like so eloquent. This one is just, yeah, I don't like being a human, don't want to work, don't want to do nothing. She's
just like me.
Literally.
She supposed she could always play the violin, but the thought didn't fill her with much excitement. She couldn't see the point in playing if it didn't make her happy. But that was where the problem lay. Nothing had been making Ethel happy as of late. When she thought about what she wanted to do, all she could see was a void, blank and empty. Ethel continued to sit there, the nape of her neck pressed up uncomfortably against the back of the chair, her cheeks sticky from cherry pie. She was sure, though she couldn't see herself, that she must have looked like an awful mess. But the girl yesterday in the church had been nice to her, nicer than she probably deserved. She called her pretty. Then she'd kissed her. The thought of this kiss surfaced at the forefront of Ethel's mind, and she flushed. Maybe she'd go and see the girl. Wasn't as though she had anything else to do. Ethel rose from the dining room table, then padded over to the front door. Once there, she put on her shoes, which were old and worn like all of her clothes, the insides worn away from rubbing against Ethel's soles. They felt a little too snug around her feet. Perhaps she ought to buy a new pair, but Ethel endured it. The physical discomfort was a worthwhile trade-off for the reassuringly familiar fit of them. Dressed and ready to weather the great outdoors, Ethel retrieved her father's torch from his toolbox once more, where it slumbered in the dark alongside his other tools, his screwdrivers, Allen keys, and other bits and pieces Ethel couldn't name. Now armed and feeling a little like a discount knight from an old fairy tale, Ethel then left the house.
This girl is literally never going to do her thesis, I'm convinced.
Yeah, she's not doing her thesis.
Been noticing a themes of... I don't know what that is. How do I pronounce that? Hold on, I'm gonna look that up.
Mycelium madams. Mycelium madams?
Oh, a mycelium is a type of mushroom.
Oh, okay.
Been noticing a theme of mushroom girls.
I knew it. I was just trying to test you see.
No, there's no particular theme or anything. I mean,
Mushroom girls are cool, but I mean...
They're cool, they're pretty, they want to kill us, and I love them for that.
It really is a coincidence that I wanted to play Grow a Girlfriend with Mugman, and then this game came out at the same time. A mushroom girl ate my thesis. Mycelium are like roots, yeah. Ethel closed the door behind her with a thud and fumbled with the keys for a few moments. She tried to jam them rather futilely into the lock before she realized she was trying to use the back door key instead. Ethel's face flushed at this folly, though there was nobody around to tease her for it. She didn't come back home very often, and she got simple things like this mixed up sometimes. After locking the door, she then set off into the night, the rickety gate fencing the family's house creaking beneath her fingertips as she pushed it open. She hoped that she'd be able to make it into the woods uninterrupted, but... Oh, it's our big guy again.
Here we go again.
The distinctive, high-pitched sound of a dog's barking made her pause. That barking sounded awfully familiar. Was that? Yes, it was. Ethel could see a small, fluffy dog rounding the corner. One of such a diminutive stature and with such floppy ears, it looked a little like a toy brought to life. There was a red collar around his neck, bright and glossy like the glazed exterior of a candy apple, and a leash attached to the collar. The leash extended upwards into the gloom and was wound about the fingers of a man whose height eclipsed the dog's to a comic degree. The dog could only have been Sparky, while its owner was Mr. Browne. Ethel hung back, feeling shy and stupid, half hoping that Mr. Browne hadn't seen her. She didn't want to get involved in any conversations. Part of her hoped that, by sliding into the shadows, he might walk past her. But, to her disappointment...
Whoa, no, this is a coincidence. I didn't expect I'll be seeing you twice. Not 2 days running.
Ethel wasn't slender or insubstantial enough to slink into the shadows. Not as she fancied the girl from the church could. All she could do was stand there feeling foolish as Mr. Browne approached her. He blinked, then said,
Ethel, are you alright?
Ethel knew Mr. Browne was being nice. At least that's what he was attempting. But his niceness rankled. Why did people keep asking her that? Did she really look that miserable? I'm fine, I just thought I'd go for a walk.
Another walk?
Mr. Browne raised his eyebrows, which were full and bushy.
Didn't you get your fill of exercise last night?
No, well, I just wanted some fresh air?
Ah, yes. The air is very fresh around here, if nothing else. It makes a nice change from the city. Or so I say, like I've not lived here for almost 30 years.
You used to live in the city? Ethel didn't mean to take an interest. She didn't want to carry this conversation out longer than it had to, but she couldn't help herself. She'd only ever seen Mr. Browne as her teacher, an authority figure who existed solely to tell her what to do, and more often than not, what not to do. She never thought about his past before. Why should she? It hadn't been all that long ago that Ethel had been a child. She hadn't realized that other people actually had lives of their own, that the world didn't revolve solely around her, and her aching desire to be accepted by the cool girls in her class who went horse riding and had sleepovers and braided one another's hair.
Oh, hey.
Mr. Browne answered casually with a small smile.
I live in Glasgow.
I think?
I live
Yeah.
in Glasgow. I was born there, born and bred. You can hear it in my accent. It comes out from time to time, but that's not here nor there. You do look very pale, Ethel. You aren't coming down with something, are you?
Ethel thought back of the cherry pie she'd eaten, which had been flecked with mold and her stomach churned. She didn't think that could have done her health many favors, but surely that hadn't been enough to make her seriously sick. She should put it from her mind. I'm fine. I just wanted to stretch my legs, like I said.
So you did. My wife was like that. She was a very outdoorsy person. She was always going off on little towns, out into the countryside and on hikes.
Mr. Browne's voice trailed away and he shook his head.
I hope you didn't get caught up in all that awful rain yesterday, at least.
I got a bit damp, but I was fine.
Were you able to get back home in time?
Not quite. I had to take shelter in the church. It let up after that.
That's just as well. I'm glad you didn't get too drenched, or worse, that you fell and broke something. I was worried about that, actually.
You were worrying about me?
Of course I was. I thought it was awful late to go on a walk, and it started coming down so hard too. I was afraid you might have gotten yourself hurt. We like yourself.
Ethel knew Mr. Browne meant well, but she had to stifle a snort in the face of this last remark. She was a lass, yes, but there was nothing particularly wee about her. She was a lot older than she had been, and she'd gotten taller, though Mr. Browne was still taller than she was. Thank you, but I'm not hurt. You don't need to worry.
Yes, I can see that. I'm glad of it. It's clear you know how to look after yourself.
Yes, well, Ethel thought, I am 21. I'm not a child.
I'll try to stop hectoring. I'm not your father, and I'm not your teacher anymore either. It's not my place to fuss. It's just force of habit, I guess. You said you went to the church last night, though?
Well, oh, yes, I did. Is there a problem with that?
Not really, no. It's just...
Mr. Browne shifted, adjusting his grip on Sparky's leash as he did. His dog yipped in response and nuzzled his nose against Mr. Browne's trouser leg. Mr. Browne smiled at this, his expression tender, as he said,
Yes, Sparky. I'll be on our way in a minute. It's just...
Mr. Browne frowned. Then he sighed.
It might be nothing. But I've heard some strange things about the church at night, is all. And the forest too, come to think of it.
Strange things.
I'm realizing this man's role in this Yuri novel. It's to tell her about all of the strange things that she's about to encounter and for her to just straight up ignore them.
Yeah! Hey, that's right. I've never seen anything myself. I don't go into the woods after dark, but some of my friends from the running club, they've said... Well, it sounds like a lot of silly superstitions, really. I don't know if I'll put too much stock in it, but they said there have been some odd going-ons by the church in the early hours.
Such as?
Oh, you know, it's all the usual stuff. They said they heard noises, I suppose. Strange whispers and the like. I was skeptical myself. I thought it must have been down to some small animals, rabbits or the like, but they were rather insistent that something's going on in the forest. I can't say I've ever heard anything out of the ordinary myself. But like I said, I don't go there at night. It seems like a trip to the emergency room waiting to happen, what with how uneven the ground is, especially during the winter. It's not safe, but not because of any bugbears or ghouls or goblins and what have you. And there is that Elaine girl.
Well, of course, how could Ethel forget about her? She'd never met the girl, yet she hung around Oxbury like a ghost. It was impossible to ignore her. It'd been much the same when Chloe, what's-her-name, had gone missing more than a decade prior, but Ethel had been in primary school then. She hadn't really understood the significance of a teenage girl, only 14 or 15, sneaking out of her parents' home late at night and disappearing without a trace within the woods. Well, Ethel said without a trace, but more of Chloe had been found than the nameless Miss Delaney. They'd found one of her shoes almost 6 months after her disappearance, deep in the woods, half buried by the leaves.
If you keep a good head on your shoulders, I'm sure you'll be fine. You're too old for me to tell you what to do, but do be careful. I'd hate to have to explain to your parents when they get back what you're doing in the hospital with a broken leg, or worse.
Mr. Browne's words were light, but Ethel got the feeling that there was more to his warnings than he was letting on. His tone seemed a bit too irreverent, in a manner which wasn't at all like his usual staid, serious style of speech. Did Mr. Browne set more store in ghouls and goblins than he wanted Ethel to think? A cold wind blew, disturbing Ethel's braids. The temperature was low enough that it made Ethel's fingers tense like claws, buried though they were in her pockets. Her teeth, meanwhile, were chattering, but this wasn't necessarily from the cold. Maybe there was something ominous about the woods. Ethel thought she'd felt it herself. The uneasy feeling of invisible eyes trained upon her. But that was all her imagination. There wasn't anything dangerous lurking in the woods, not really.
Or was there?
Yeah, not really. No, it's fine.
Or was there?
The only dangerous thing there is a hot girl who
mushroom
very
girl.
much wants you.
Guys, don't worry, he has a dog.
That's true. He has a small dog.
Like, comically small dog.
The dog will scare the mushroom girl away, and that's how you get like the secret happy ending.
I'm trying to think, like, what is the significance of, like, the cherry pie getting mold on it, though? Because, maybe Ethel has mushrooms inside her. Because, the mushroom girl did kiss us, and then now we're getting mushrooms in our mouth. So...
Maybe I'm thinking, like, as a metaphor of, like, things looking, like, sweet on the outside, but inside...
But
like,
secretly they're fuzzy and green and oh.
But yeah, because like everything looks like for Ethel, right? It looks like sweet, like yeah, it's
like
mysterious and all that, but it's like normal until like it stops being normal eventually, you know. That's what I'm
Awesome as
thinking.
usual. Thank you. I'm intrigued by the fact that she didn't seem to get filled up from the non-moldy food she ate. That is interesting. I'm trying to remember, like, is that a mushroom thing that they eat a lot? They eat, like, decaying things. But, like, they're fungi, so they kind of, like, thrive on that. Frankly, I don't know enough about mushrooms. Ethel made slow progress.
Oh yes, tell me your fucking mushroom expertise, Ren. Since you know all so much.
Speaking of the other Mushroom Girl game, the dev actually came in while we were streaming it. And,
oh yeah, Mike saw me.
Yeah, which was really cool. I got curious and I went to the dev's profile and they've actually played this game. And they were like, yeah, this game was cool as hell. And I was like, hell yeah. So they mentioned that they did a lot of research into mushrooms, in particular for the puns for the endings, but I imagine that they've done a little more. So I wonder, I wonder if they could tell us anything.
Ethel made slow progress as she walked through the woods, her passage impeded by how muddy and uneven the terrain was. It had rained too much the night prior, and the forest had suffered from it, the earth a cacophony of dun brown mud, loose leaves, and fallen foliage. The heavy rain...
maybe, wait, I'm sorry, I'm thinking again.
It's okay?
But, like, because the fact that, like, Ethel didn't get anything from it, from, like, the mod and stuff, right?
Mm.
I'm thinking maybe, like, because she knows on, like, deep inside it's actually, like, these, like, very bad decisions for her and all that stuff, right? But, like, she decides to, like, not care about it, like, ignore it. And
like,
that's
embrace it?
why it's, like, it doesn't have... Yeah, like, she's, like, embracing it and stuff. I'm thinking.
Mm.
And I just heard my dog barking, so I guess that means I'm right. Thank you, dog.
Thank you. What, Milo,
Thank you,
right?
Miko.
Miko? Hala.
Miko.
I looked it up. Mushrooms feed on organic material, primarily decomposing dead plants and animals by absorbing nutrients from their environment. I see. They can also grow inside people. There's a species of parasite mushroom. I see. And then we feed on the mushrooms. The heavy rainfall had transformed the path through the forest into a veritable quagmire. Ethel didn't have any hiking boots. She didn't go outside often enough to justify it, and she'd been forced to settle for her trainers. Her trainers were relatively sturdy, but the heels weren't particularly thick, and they sunk into the mud with every single step she took. Ethel tried to go as carefully as she could. She knew that she was clumsy and she didn't want to take a spill when the ground was so muddy, but she still stumbled on several occasions. During one particularly anxiety-inducing moment, her right foot caught in a tree root and she very nearly toppled into the dirt. Fortunately, the tree trunk which the aforementioned root had been attached to was in the immediate vicinity, and Ethel had been able to use it in order to steady herself. That really had been a close call. Ethel delved even deeper into the woods, the trees sprouting up around her like pagan monuments. Typically, when Ethel went walking in the woods, she could hear the wind through the boughs of the trees and the nocturnal animals, moles and rabbits, snuffling about in the undergrowth. Oxbury's forest never really slept, no matter how late the hour. There was always something to see, and if it was too dark to see, there was always something to hear. Ethel couldn't hear much of anything, however, as she traversed the forest, beyond the squelching sounds of her own footsteps and her nervy inhalations. It was quiet. Perhaps too quiet. There was something eerie about it. And maybe this too could be attributed to the rainfall. It had poured down rather a lot the night prior, so much so the leaves still looked damp from it. The late-night animals with their inquisitive snouts and their scrabbling claws must have been taking refuge still, in case another storm was brewing. Mr. Browne had said the weather looked clear enough tonight, but how were the animals to know that? It would make sense if they were being skittish. The trees eventually began to thin out, and soon, Ethel emerged into the moonlit clearing where St. Catherine's sat. The church didn't exactly loom out of the darkness, it wasn't grand enough for that, but it had a somber, reassuringly solid presence regardless. Ethel didn't know quite how old the church was, but Rowan was something of a history buff, and he told her about it once before. Rowan was a hands-on kind of person, unlike Manny, and he spent a lot of his free time going on rambles around Oxbury and the fields which surrounded it. Rowan did etchings of the graves, and he liked to take photos of them, all little grey lozenges which were stained with lichen and crumbling ever so gently around the edges. The parish council might have dissuaded teenagers from hanging out in the churchyard, for fear they would desecrate the graves and leave cigarette butts strewn in their wake, but Rowan wasn't like that. At 17 years of age, he was one of the kindest, most conscientious teenage boys Ethel knew. Which wasn't saying much, given Rowan was one of the only teenage boys she knew, but still. If Rowan had been there, he could have told her when the church had been constructed, down to the exact year. He could have told her about the history of the stained glass window, which Ethel had always thought a curious addition for such a small, humble church.
He probably knew when the window had been installed and who it depicted, and he probably could have told her the name of the glazier who made the damn thing. But Rowan wasn't there. He was in Australia, with Lauren and Jude and Manny, and though he'd shared these nuggets of information with Ethel once, she'd already forgotten all of it. Ethel felt a brief flicker of guilt for her awful memory. What a callous big sister she was. But all thoughts of Rowan soon dissipated as she took a step towards the church. Its wooden door was ajar. It was only ajar by a small crack, a hair's breadth, in fact, but it was enough to instill in Ethel hope anew. Maybe the girl really was there. Was she waiting for her? Please be in there. Please, please, please.
Please, 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 please.
It's been an hour, and we miss you? Ethel pushed the door open just a notch, then slipped inside the church. The sound of the old door opening seemed uncomfortably loud in the near-total silence, and it rent the air quite clumsily. Ethel winced as she heard its low, obnoxious creaking, which sounded like the malcontented rumblings of a mighty whale's stomach. She hadn't wanted to spoil the magic of the girl's singing, but it was too late. The silence had been broken. Ethel knew that the girl would soon turn her head, and she did. The girl turned, her dark hair fluttering, half melted into the darkness as though her head was made of shadows. She took a step forward, her skirt swishing, and said,
Ethel, I was wondering if I would see you again. I was getting so bored and lonely waiting for you.
You were?
Of course I was. I asked if you would see me again, didn't I?
Oh, yes. So you did. It was true enough that the girl had asked this during their last meeting, but Ethel hadn't really believed in it. She hadn't thought that the girl cared. Why would she? She was beautiful while Ethel was...
With you here, this old church feels a lot more homey. Now then.
The girl took a seat on one of the pews, then patted the empty space beside her.
Won't you sit down? There's an awful lot I would like to ask you. I managed to scrap the surface this time. You're still such an enigma to me. I could call you Miss Mystery.
I think I could say the same about you. I still don't know your name.
Oh, in good time. First, I want to ask about you. What's your story?
Story. Ethel frowned. I don't think I really have one.
Oh, don't be silly. Everyone has a story. You hardly grew out of the ground, did you? Like a turnip?
Well, no.
Then you must have a story to share. Parents, grandparents, maybe some siblings? Hey, didn't you say you had a couple of brothers?
That face when you came to eat a mushroom, but she eats you instead. In the good way?
Thank you for the $5!
In the sexy way?
I do, yeah. Manny and Rowan. They're both younger than me.
And? What are they like?
Manny is... He's... Well... Ethel paused. How could she put this tactfully? It was hard to talk about her feelings about Manny while trying to maintain a veneer of politeness, but Manny himself wasn't a very polite person. Manny was practically glued to his PC. He had been banned from numerous lobbies for using words he really shouldn't have, and he swore and swaggered around the house as though he owned the place. Ew! Ew, 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 ew. Ugh.
Ew.
I know a person like this in real life, and he is disgusting.
He pattered about the kitchen barefoot, sometimes shirtless.
Talked with his mouth full of breakfast table. Ugh! And the only person he ever listened to was Jude.
Bruh.
Manny thought everyone else was uncool. Ethel in particular, because she was shy and awkward and had awful acne in her last year of secondary school, and because she played the violin. He's... a typical teenager.
Does that mean he's a pain in the neck?
He can be.
And what about your other brother?
Oh, Rowan's lovely. He's not like Manny at all. He's very quiet, actually, and mostly keeps to himself. Mum's been a bit worried about him as it happens.
Yeah?
Yeah, she thinks he's being bullied at school, maybe. But if he is, he'd never tell. He doesn't like to talk about it.
Maybe he's afraid Manny will make fun of him.
I thought he was more worried that Mom would make a fuss, but maybe.
Teenage boys can be like that. They have a lot of pride, even... No, especially the quiet ones. Some of the boys I had to deal with at school were such wankers.
Oh, Rose, it's a treat getting to hear you say that word.
I don't know what that word is. I'm just like innocently saying it.
So do you know what wanking means?
Yeah.
So a wanker, it's just like a guy who, I mean, yeah, fucking wanker. Oh god, what's a good comparison? Like, in a way, as it's explaining, I am so I'm British American. I'm half British, half American. Doofus, but like more intense than that. Like it's.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Okay. Goon. Gooner. But it's
No,
it
because Fanta just said like that. I was like, oh, I get it.
Britishly.
Britishly, yeah.
You'll have bottle water. Yeah, I am. Uh-oh, one of my mods just DM'd me. Terrifying.
Oh no.
A wanker is a gooner. I know that. Oh, someone already said that. I didn't even know he was here. But yes, I am British American. I don't have much of an accent though. Like, I mean, I like a little bit. Like I say Tuesday. Hi, Judge. But yeah, I do
Judge.
unironically say Tuesday, which I have been made fun of in the past. Anyway.
The girl scoffed dismissively, then said,
So, what about your parents? Didn't you say yesterday you weren't told that cause?
"It's complicated. My mom means well. I know she wants me to be happy, but
But...
I don't think she understands what would really make me happy. And I don't think she understands me either."
Does she shy?
She does. She paid for my violin lessons, though she doesn't see the point in classical music. She says it's boring. And she was supportive when I said I wanted to study English Lit. She didn't try to make me change my mind, not like some people's parents would have. She didn't tell me I should study something useful instead, like mathematics or medicine or, I don't know, physics.
Aren't you the one with the bad Brit accent, or is that Muggs? That's Mugman. That is Mugman. I cannot emphasize enough.
But she didn't seem to really get it either.
I take it your mother doesn't read a lot then?
She doesn't read at all, unless you count women's magazines.
I thought I was just constipated, but then I gave birth in the toilet bowl. That sort of magazines?
Ethel nodded.
Okay.
My mother and I aren't very alike.
I gathered. She doesn't sound like the sensitive sort. Not like you.
Do you think I'm sensitive?
It's the impression I'm getting. Yeah, I mean, you stuck around to listen to me singing. It sounds like your mother would have told me to shut up. That I was giving her a headache.
I don't think she would have said that. My mother isn't cruel. Though Lauren could be blunt. Lauren had made many careless remarks about Ethel's appearance before. Quips to the tune of... Here you go for it.
God, you aren't going to go out dressed like that, are you?
Ethel knew that Lauren didn't mean any ill by it. She was probably trying to show an interest in her only daughter. But sometimes the way her mother looked at her hurt. Lauren was nice to Ethel because Ethel was her daughter, But Ethel knew that if her mother had been one of her peers, a Shania or an Imogen or a Morgan back in school, she would have teased her relentlessly. Oh, does this mean that, Ethel goes to the same school as, oh god, what was our protagonist's name? Mermaid of Zener.
Oh,
Lauren, with her peroxide blonde hair and her French manicured nails, had probably made any number of frumpy, unfashionable girls cry when she'd been a student. Lilac, that's right! Lauren might never have made a conscious effort to upset her only daughter, but she definitely made Ethel cry on more than one occasion.
cool or not, it doesn't sound like she takes much of an interest in you.
We just like different things, it happens. We might be related, but that doesn't mean we'll have similar interests.
And what is she into then?
Love Island and TikTok, mostly.
Love Island?
We're actually having a conversation about Love Island.
It's a reality TV show, it's awful. The contestants are all horrid, but I think that's why my mother likes it so much. I tried watching it with her, but it felt like gawping at animals in a zoo. Or gladiators in an Olympic coliseum out for one another's blood.
Right. So, your mom's hopeless. And your dad?
He's... your typical dad, I guess?
Meaning?
He likes football and Formula One, and his favorite band is Iron Maiden. He does working and DIY, and he can play the guitar too.
Oh, so he's a creative then?
In a way. He was in a couple local bands when he was younger, but they never went anywhere. I don't think he resents it though, they were just having fun. Dad asked me once before why I bothered practicing the violin so much when it was obvious I'd never get anywhere with it.
He didn't!
He did. He said if he'd not been able to get anywhere with his band, there's no way I'd be able to make it. I mean, he was playing punk and I'm doing classical, so...
He shouldn't have said that. Whether he was right or not, it was uncalled for. Some people like to perform for their own sakes. You don't need to be popular to make your pursuits worthwhile.
That's what I said. And Dad said it was a good thing I got something out of the hideous screeching my violin made, cause he sure as hell didn't.
Wow. He sounds like an asshole.
He's just insensitive. He isn't that bad, really.
He was rude about your hobbies. No, your passions. I think that's plenty bad. Especially coming from your father. I thought parents were supposed to support their children.
There are lots of different parents in this world and a lot of different children. I don't think I'm quite what either my mother or my father wanted.
Yeah? Well, parents can choose their kids, but kids can't choose their parents either. I doubt you would have been stuck with them if you could decide, would you?
Well, Ethel thought of her real parents, the neatly groomed Lauren and the wannabe rocker Jude. Then she thought of the parents she'd imagined for herself while growing up. A sweet, sensitive couple who appreciated the arts, and who encouraged Ethel in her musical pursuits. She thought of the upbringing she could have had, a Parisian apartment which overlooked Avenue Montaigne, and sighed wistfully. I guess not.
I thought as much. Your folks sound rotten.
They're not so bad. But it is nice being able to talk about my interests with somebody who seems to care.
Of course I care. Why wouldn't I?
The girl pouted, adopting the tempestuous tone of a Celtic warrior queen of centuries past.
You're interesting.
I'm not so sure about that.
You might not be, but I am. I wouldn't bother talking to you otherwise. I don't suffer fools gladly. You know? I don't like spending time with people who tire me. You most definitely don't do that. I enjoy listening to your stories. I enjoy listening to you. Goodness, I think I'll enjoy simply sitting with you, even without talking. Your company is very soothing.
I doubt that. You'd get bored of me eventually.
When I'm with you?
The girl grinned, a cheeky grin which was less Celtic warrior queen and more Cockney Victorian chimney sweep.
Never! I'm certain of that. I'm sticking to it. Why do you look so unsure though? Haven't people ever told you that you're interesting before?
Not really.
Well, people are stupid. You shouldn't pay attention to what they think, or don't think in this case, because it doesn't sound like they have any sensible thoughts rattling around in their thick skulls. They're too empty-headed to realize something truly special when they see it.
Ethel didn't reply. She was starting to feel too overwhelmed. The girl's words were so forceful, Ethel felt oddly breathless in their wake, stunned into silence. Ethel never before given any cause to think she was anything special. In fact, it was quite the opposite, but...
You're too nice. That's your problem. You have a hard time standing up to people. When they ignore you, or overlook you, or underestimate you, you roll over and accept it. You don't want to cause a fuss, so you agree with all the negative things people say about you, even things that are bluntly false. You're so afraid of causing any offense, you don't know how to properly live your own life. I think that makes you special too, in a sense. It means that you're very kind. You're a lot kinder than I am, at least. I've never let anybody insult me like that.
The girl leant in as she spoke, cupping both of Ethel's cheeks with her hands. The girl's skin might have been cold, almost inhumanly so, but the words which poured from her lips were so warm they made Ethel's body tingle. It was a dark, cold night, but she was beginning to blush. Ethel couldn't help but be self-conscious about this. If Shania were there, she would have pounced on even the smallest sign of weakness. But the girl didn't use it against Ethel. She wasn't trying to hurt her. Her voice was even sweeter than honey as she said,
But maybe that's why we get along so well. We can make up for what I lack. And maybe I can make up for what you lack too.
"What I lack?" The girl nodded.
If you can tell people what you want, then I'll have to do it for you.
And what makes you think you know what I want?
Oh, I think I have a pretty good idea. You might be bad at being honest with your true feelings, verbally at least, but they show up regardless, all over your pretty little face.
Pretty?
Yes, that's right. I think you're very pretty. And you're really easy to read too. So obvious what's going on inside that dome of yours.
The girl leant in even closer, the tip of her nose brushing against Ethel's. She inhaled. Then she said, her voice newly playful,
And I think that's very cute. If you're going to act like this, then you don't leave me with much choice. I'll simply have to kiss you.
The girl shifted closer to Ethel as she spoke, her fingers still splayed against Ethel's cheeks, effectively affixing her head in place. The girl might have been skinny, but her grip was surprisingly strong. Ethel could feel her fingertips digging into her skull with such intensity it hurt. Ethel trembled, her eyes a little too large, as the girl brought their lips closer. She exhaled, and when she did, Ethel felt the girl's breath ghost against her cheeks. Maybe it was just Ethel's imagination, but for a few moments, Ethel thought she could smell something subtly off about the girl's breath. There was something almost old about the air which brushed against Ethel's cheeks, if age indeed had a smell. It put Ethel in mind of an old person's home, the same one her great-uncle had been sequestered away in when his health had begun to deteriorate, and he could no longer shuffle around his bungalow without stumbling over his own slippered feet. Ethel had only visited her great-uncle a handful of times in the old person's home, despite her mother's frequent invitations that she tag along. She hadn't liked it. All of those old men and women had upset Ethel, their faces wrinkled and their wizened fingers gripping the armrests of their chairs, their skin shrunk down to the bone. Everything in the old person's home had been brown, the floors, the walls, and the chairs, and though it had been scrubbed clean from top to bottom with Lysol, there had been a pervasive stench which cut beneath the clinical cleanliness. The air had smelt unpleasantly rank, just like mildew. It had reeked of rapidly impending death, impossible to staunch. And the girl's breath was just like that. There was a perplexing wrongness to it, which made Ethel's skin prickle. All of a sudden, Ethel wanted to pull away. But then the girl's mouth was upon her, her lips wet and warm and yielding, and this didn't smell wrong. The girl's tongue was inoffensive as it slid between Ethel's parted lips, as was the saliva which coated it. Ethel couldn't find any reason to squirm away from her. If anything, she'd far rather squirm against her. So she did. Ethel felt the girl's tongue exploring her mouth, slowly at first, but she moved more vigorously as the seconds elapsed, and Ethel made no attempt to push her away. Ethel felt as if her skin was prickling with static electricity. Ethel had kissed the girl before, this was nothing new, but she'd never kissed her quite like this before. It was intense enough to leave her head reeling, intense enough to render her breathless. Speaking of her breath, Ethel soon realized that she'd been holding it. Her lungs were burning. Was kissing supposed to hurt quite this much? Ethel had never been kissed quite this intensely before, not by Clementine. Her makeout sessions were now beginning to seem almost demure, even when they'd escalated to roving hands beneath shirts, roving hands between thighs. The girl had yet to take her hands from Ethel's face, but her kisses were unlike anything Ethel had ever known before. They were intense and driving, so much so it was scary. But it was exciting too. Ethel's blood was beginning to fizz inside her veins like cream soda. Her head, meanwhile, felt light. But her lungs were still burning. Oh, this was no good. She had to get some air in her. Otherwise, Ethel was afraid she would asphyxiate, drowning in her own pleasure like a rat in Nevada soup. Ethel drew back from the kiss. Her face daubed bright red with an intense, almost angry blush which looked like a sunburn. Her chest was rising and falling from the effort of trying to inhale enough air. Air which felt strangely light and sparse, as it might at the heady peak of a towering mountain. Ethel's lips were damp from the girl's kisses, and her heart was hammering from the intensity of them. It was a cool night, but her palms felt uncomfortably sweaty. Surreptitiously, Ethel tried to wipe her palms on her skirt. All the while she felt like a fool. Why was she so worked up about a kiss of all things? It was hardly her first. But she'd never felt anything like this before. It felt just like a dream.
Did you like that then?
The girl addressed Ethel directly, her eyes boring into Ethel's as if Ethel were her prey. The girl, the predator.
It wasn't too much for you, was it?
Ethel didn't know. Everything seemed like too much in that moment. Even existing seemed a difficult art, especially when her breathing was so very labored. She felt as she had back in secondary school, flagging behind her classmates in the middle of cross-country. Her heart wouldn't stop hammering. The girl's affection had been far too cloying as she'd poured it into Ethel's mouth. Her kisses sweet like molasses, like candy floss, like cherry pie. It was all too much, it was overwhelming. But by the same token, it wasn't enough. Ethel wanted more of the girl, more of her fingers in her hair and her mouth against her own. And maybe the girl could see this, though Ethel was too ashamed to say it, because she giggled.
Good girl. I'm glad you have warmed up to me so much. I do wish you'd say a little more though. Put me on my ease. But that's alright.
The girl spoke so softly, caressing Ethel's damp lower lip with her index finger as she did.
Can you give me a second? I'm so sorry. Give me a second.
Have fun. Damn, couldn't leave in the middle of like the hour-long monologue that I had. Such an intimate moment, and the background music is this. Menacing music, what could it mean? She said it! She said the thing! Oh man.
No, I was reading what y'all were saying while I was reading the text. Yeah, this is like
Definition of love bombing.
like just this is their second meeting. It doesn't feel like it. Like, and I mean, even if this wasn't their second meeting, this is the kind of, you know that like that
yeah,
phrase.
I know that.
Yeah.
Hey, where's some book?
You know that phrase that's just like, just because they're good for your whole doesn't mean they're good for your soul. Like, it feels like that.
What?
It basically means, even though the is good, doesn't mean that they're like a good person. Like, you can have a toxic relationship and still good, you know? I also wouldn't kiss someone on the second meet. I don't care how attractive they are. Oh, honey, they kissed on the first meeting. The way Rose was voicing that, goddamn, she ate, hopefully not the mushrooms. You did eat that.
I will eat the mushrooms.
Anyway, all you.
Yeah. You don't need to talk, not when we are together. I'm not interested in hearing more about your awful parents and your obnoxious brothers. There's plenty I can learn about you just from kissing you. The whimpers that you make are rather informative. So is the way you shudder against me. It's utterly adorable. I've no idea why your girlfriend dumped you. She must have had awful taste.
Huh? Groggily Ethel blinked, as though waking from a dream. Her eyelids felt awfully heavy, as though they'd been weighed down with lead, but she was still able to pick out the girl's features in the dark, her face looming centimeters away from her own. Oh, what was that about her girlfriend? Her ex-girlfriend, rather? Had Ethel told the girl about Clementine? She couldn't remember doing that. But she couldn't remember much of anything other than hands and teeth and lips and tongues and grasping fingers and soft, breathy sighs. Her thoughts were all a jumble.
Shh. It's alright. I know she hurt you, but you don't need to think about her now. You don't need to think about anything. All you need to do is focus on me. I'm not Grow, not like her. I won't abandon you. I like you.
The girl leant in, her lips parted. Red lips like cherries, which were a little slick from Ethel's saliva. She was so close. Ethel could feel herself inhaling the air that the girl exhaled, taking in her breath and stripping it of oxygen. Ethel was reminded, as the girl caressed her, of the cyclical snake which ate its own tail. What was it called? Ethel had known once, but she couldn't remember.
And I'm going to keep on liking you.
Had the girl's eyes always been so dark?
No matter what. That's just the sort of person I am.
It was with a light giggle, one which sounded oddly eerie, that the girl leant in anew to reclaim Ethel's lips with her own. Ethel gasped at the kiss, though it wasn't at this point a surprise. She'd expected it. The girl had kissed her innumerable times already, after all, that night. So much so, Ethel couldn't keep count of it. Ethel still found herself squirming, however, at this new volley of intense kisses. Ethel felt the girl's teeth nip at her lower lip, too insistent to be truly teasing, while the fingers of her right hand cupped her cheek. The fingers of the girl's left hand, meanwhile, seemed imbued with a newfound restlessness. They began to roam, slipping beneath the hem of Ethel's sensible sweater. And then... Ethel shuddered, her nerve endings aflame, as the girl's palm pressed against her newly bared skin. The girl's touch was cold enough to be glacial. It felt like icy needles were being inserted beneath the skin, pointed needles which drove the air clean from Ethel's body. The further the kisses progressed, the greater Ethel's deterioration became. Her eyelids flickered. Though she had her eyes opened, the girl was so close Ethel couldn't see very much of her. In the dark of the night, the girl seemed an amorphous being made of teeming shadows, something which wasn't wholly human. Ethel whimpered helplessly against the girl's mouth, her whole body aflame. An uncomfortable sort of dread had begun to crawl up Ethel's spine. It was cold and creeping, and it left her paralyzed, completely incapable of moving. For a few moments, Ethel could only sit there, accepting the girl's kisses, but no longer reciprocating them. The girl's tongue felt a thick, heavy sort of thing in her mouth, like a slab of leather, and Ethel was filled with the sudden desire to bite down upon it. Her shoulders shook. She didn't want this. It was all happening too quickly. The girl's fingers roamed higher still beneath Ethel's shirt, and Ethel jolted. Her eyes widened. Then she shifted back, breaking the kiss with such suddenness it seemed almost akin to violence. I'm sorry. I don't want to be rude. It's just, this is all so sudden.
Oh?
The girl examined Ethel, her head cocked to one side like a curious robin. Her lips curved into a smirk, and, her voice slightly amused, she said,
What's this? Don't tell me you're coming over all shy.
No, it's just... Ethel looked away from the girl, newly incapable of meeting her gaze. Who was she, anyway? Ethel still didn't know her name. She could have been a serial killer for all Ethel knew. A shadowy stranger who seduced hapless young girls, not that Ethel herself was so young, not anymore, then led them to their deaths. This seemed a bit of a far-fetched assumption, but the girl had been singing when Ethel had first seen her. Wasn't that something the sirens did in Greek myths of old? She's catching on.
Okay, actually, that's a mushroom, not a siren. So, like, you're wrong, actually. You're wrong.
Yeah,
Go
Earth,
back to
not
classes.
sea.
The sirens were beautiful women with long, curling hair and glittering tails who would perch prettily upon their rocks, calling out to passing sailors. They drowned more than a few hapless men that way, reducing their boats to pulp driftwood on the pointed, impersonal rocks. Ethel herself was no sailor, but she felt as though she was drowning. Her lungs might very well have been full with fetid, muddied water, and the longer she sat with the girl, the more intense this feeling became. Ethel pressed her fingers against her lips. They were tingling, her fingers and her lips both. Her brow, meanwhile, felt cold and clammy.
Aww.
The girl, evidently taking Ethel's silence as a tacit confession that, yes, she was feeling shy, giggled.
Oh, that's very cute.
You keep saying that, but am I really, cute?
Of course! You've got to be a little bit cute. Also, wouldn't I kissing you so much? In fact, I've become quite taken with you. It's a bit of a shame you decided to cut our little... rendezvous short.
Rendezvous. Is that how the girl wanted to term it? How delightfully European. It almost made what they had done before. The girl's tongue shoved inside Ethel's mouth seemed cultured.
That is alright. I wouldn't want to push you. Not too much, at least. So I'll play nice for now. I won't demand too much from you. Although...
The girl's smile widened until, modulated by the shadows, it looked uncanny.
If you care for me, at least. Let's say 1/5 as much as I care for you. You shouldn't play games with my poor heart. Going hot and cold will only keep my interest for so long. We won't have much time together. Not after today. I wouldn't want you to wind up missing me too much.
Bro, with the scrolling text, I thought it was gonna stop at missing, and I was like, is she admitting that she's kidnapping girls? I wouldn't want you to wind up missing. Like, that's crazy. That was what I thought for a second.
It'd be a shame if you never got to say everything you wanted to say, or do everything you want to do.
Here, the girl raised her eyebrows suggestively, which didn't seem quite in keeping with her heart-shaped face.
So you might as well make the most of things, or at least try to. Don't tell me they say it's better to regret the things you have done than the things you have not done.
It was a saying Ethel was familiar with, but she didn't hold much stock in it.
She's making an amazing deadbeat abusive boyfriend. Yeah, no, she's pretty bad. This is insane. I mean,
I can fix her.
yeah,
I can fix her.
Are you getting out your screwdriver or your wrench? Ethel's so cooked, she's practically burnt.
Call me fucking Bob the
Bob the
Call me
builder.
fucking Bob the construction. Bob the builder, yeah, that one. Call me fucking Bob the builder, I'm fixing this girl.
I'm going
fucking
her?
Where's the pipe?
Bob.
Where's the pipe?
She's so cooked, she's ash.
There were a lot of things she'd done during her short life that she wished, in retrospect, she hadn't. She wished she hadn't plucked up the courage to hold Clementine's hand for the very first time, when they'd both gone to the cinema to watch some mindless superhero movie. She wished she hadn't had the wild idea of asking Clementine out on a date, once the film had ended and the credits had started rolling. And she wished that Clementine, giggling, hadn't said, "What's this? I thought we were already on a date." If a relationship had never begun between the two of them, then Ethel never would have known how much it hurt when a relationship fell apart. One that you cared about. She regretted that rather a lot. Sometimes Ethel wished she could scrub her mind clean of their entire relationship. All the late-night texting, the trips to the movies, the sleepovers in Clementine's dorm room, which had been bigger than Ethel's. But maybe some good had come out of their short-lived relationship after all. For a few months, at least, Ethel had been really, truly happy. When she'd been Clementine's girlfriend, she hadn't felt at all lonely. This loneliness had returned full force, however, once everything had come to an end. But what was done was done. There was no sense dwelling on it. For the present, she existed in the here and now, on a pew in Oxbury's church with the girl, and that was good enough for her. In any case, hadn't the girl said something rather strange? "What do you mean we don't have much time left to spend together?"
That's exactly what I said. My parents will be coming to pick me up soon. Tomorrow's my last full day here. I'll be gone on Monday morning.
Oh. Ethel hadn't expected that, though why she hadn't expected it, she was unsure. The girl had told her earlier, hadn't she, that she wasn't staying in Oxbury indefinitely, she was just visiting. She made it quite apparent that she couldn't wait to be rid of the place, a sentiment Ethel shared. If she could have escaped Oxbury, she would have. It felt oppressive. It did seem awfully sudden, though, that the girl had announced her departure now, so soon after they'd met. Ethel had only known the girl for 2 days, or nights, rather. They'd barely had a chance to talk. Hell, they'd barely had a chance to speak. The girl had been so aggressive when it came to kissing her. Very little in the way of actual conversation had passed between them during the last 15 minutes. Now it seemed unlikely that Ethel would ever see the girl again.
There.
The girl, perhaps sensing Ethel's anxiety, let her hand rest atop Ethel's own. She smiled gently, then said,
We have one more day, at least to share all of our dirty little secrets with one another. So, don't worry, this isn't the end. Who knows, it might even be a new beginning.
A new... what? Ethel was stuck on the girl's words. They were rather corny. When the girl leant in. Then, the girl pressed her lips against Ethel's cheek. The kiss was a fleeting one, of a magnitude less intense than those she had previously bestowed upon her partner, but Ethel still blushed. She simply couldn't help herself, not around the girl. She was hopeless.
I don't mind giving you my phone number or my address. Heck, I'll even give you my national insurance number if you wanted it.
Not the SSN. I don't think you need to go quite that far.
I thought not. Still, I want to show you how serious I'm being about this. I'm serious about us.
Us? Was there an us? That was news to Ethel.
But you have to make a bit of an effort too, alright? If you want to keep seeing me, then I need to test your resolve. It's like a quest from a fairy tale, you know? Not that I'm as sadistic as the princesses from those. I won't have you scouring the ends of the earth for golden apples or slaying any dragons. What I want is much more manageable. You just need to come to the church and see me tomorrow night, like you usually do. Do you think you can manage that? Do say that you will. I hate for things to end like this.
The girl looked at Ethel, her gaze poignant and her lips pursed. And as Ethel stared at the girl's pretty face, she found herself incapable of looking away. She was spellbound.
Ethel's such a victim.
Girl, she's just like me. I would also fall victim in like the first second. God, what I would... If red flag, it said if red flag, white, green.
White, green.
If red flag, white, green. Anyways, I told you my parents went to a restaurant, right? Where
Yes.
they brought me food from the restaurant. I'm going to eat.
Hell yeah, what'd they bring you?
Meat.
Yeah. Eat up that meat. And she muted.
Thoughts of the girl were Ethel's constant companions as she navigated the forest's twisting paths, and as she emerged from the thicket of trees which surrounded her. These thoughts percolated inside her skull as she went her way through Oxbury street, until she returned to the nondescript lane where her parents' house was situated. Ethel thought of the girl as her fingers fumbled for her keys, and she thought of the girl as she pushed the front door inwards with a click. She thought of her as she bent to unlace her shoes, and as she ascended the stairs with a series of heavy, lumbering footfalls. She thought of the girl as she drew a bath. Ethel had always liked having baths, and it was nice being able to fill the tub so late at night without having to worry about waking her parents. And as she submerged herself, nymph-like, in the warm water. Yes! Pretty CG! Ethel had run the water hot on purpose. She liked her baths to be scalding, hot enough that the sensitive skin on her soles began to prune and her face turned pink, and she could feel it permeating her pores. She curled up inside the tub like a newborn, shivering as the ceramic pressed against her skin. The hot water was soothing, as was the sound of the water as it rippled around her. But, though she was now far away from the forest, and from the church which dwelt within it, Ethel's thoughts had yet to stray from the girl. Still, she thought of her, turning her visage over and over in her head, as a child might play with pebbles on the beach. The girl had overtaken her thoughts entirely, seemed, in fact, to have permeated through Ethel's skin, and into the core of her very being. Ethel's bones ached for the girl, and so did her muscles. Ethel's thoughts were becoming vague, a side effect of the bathwater, which she might have run a bit too hot after all. Steam was rising from the undulating surface of the water. It misted over the bathroom mirror and the silvery taps at the end of the tub. Ethel's flushed cheeks were beginning to prickle with moisture. When she blinked, a pearly bead of sweat was dislodged from her left eyelid. Slowly, it trickled down her nose and Ethel brushed it away. Ethel's body felt as though it was burning, but this wasn't wholly the fault of the water. The heat wasn't an external thing, sloshing against her thighs and her stomach and the curve of her back. It seemed to be inside her, too. It had infiltrated her. These thoughts of the girl, of her lithe, lean body and her dark hair, were so overwhelming they were almost intimidating. Like the particularly sadistic parasites which infected insects, to have them climb to conspicuous places so they could be consumed by predators, Ethel too felt her body moving. She was hardly conscious of what she was doing. It was very late at night and she was tired, and the bathwater was so very warm as her hand shifted. Adana! Ethel's left hand found one of her breasts, a full curve of supple flesh which was damp from the bathwater. Ethel never liked her breasts very much. She had in fact considered them a constant source of shame ever since she'd been a young girl. They'd swollen much more quickly than the rest of her female classmates, even when she'd been in primary school. Lauren had taken her bra shopping when she'd only been 9 years old, much to Ethel's chagrin. The other girls her age, the Shanias and the Imogines and the Morgans of the world, had still been playing hopscotch in the playground and tying each other's hair in uneven pigtails. Ethel, meanwhile, had to go bra shopping with her mother. She was the first in her class to wear a bra, and she felt like it marked her. The ugly, beige flesh harness had made her stand out when she tried to change for PE class among the other girls. Shania and Morgan had both giggled when they'd seen Ethel's bra, as though it was something shameful, as though they themselves would never need to wear a bra one day. That had been nothing new for Ethel, however. Even at the tender age of 9 and some change, Ethel had been tragically accustomed to the teasing from her other classmates. She hadn't been prepared for the boys to gang up on her too, however. There'd been one boy in particular, Aiden Yates, who found Ethel's new bra supremely fascinating. He'd sat behind Ethel in class, and he'd soon taken to twanging the elastic on the back of her bra beneath her demure yellow and white check school dress, so the band snapped against Ethel's skin. This had hurt her. Though, worse than any physical discomfort, it had been humiliating. She'd been so very humiliated by this, she hadn't been able to tell Mr. Browne about Aiden. She hadn't wanted to draw even more attention to her bra or to her breasts, which she had despised. Ethel had been on the receiving end of jeers and catcalls from men twice her age in the street before she'd been in double digits. It'd been a miserable experience, one which had made her resent her body. Even now, when Ethel had grown and the rest of her body had filled out to the degree she no longer looked as horribly disproportionate as she had as a child, Ethel still loathed her breasts. If she could have, she would have clawed them from her body like lumps of clay or lumps of dough. Ethel couldn't do that, however. All she could do was endure them, and that was precisely what Ethel had tried to do. She had endured and endured and endured, never much liking the cumbersome cage of flesh she'd been trapped in. But it wasn't resentment which prompted Ethel to massage her breasts now. Waha! I won't describe this. Her actions were not those of a woman who wanted to surgically remove the bags of fat which swayed on her chest. They were reverent instead, almost worshipful.
I'm trying to decide when to start reading again. I'll start here. If it gets too much worse, then I just need to be careful about saying specific words.
Ethel had touched herself before. Much as she disliked her body, she wasn't necessarily afraid of it, but she couldn't recall it ever feeling quite like this. She'd never been quite this thorough when she'd been in the past. Typically, Ethel did it only ever to get the act over and done with, so she could do more productive things with her time, things which were decidedly less embarrassing. Ethel wasn't asexual, at least she didn't think she was, but she never enjoyed self-pleasure very much. She had the urge to touch herself, but the urge was a fleeting one, and when it did come, she didn't like to linger upon it. She didn't like to indulge. Her reservation stemmed in part because she didn't like to look at herself naked. She thought she looked hideous. Maybe she didn't think that her body deserved pleasure. That might have been why she always denied herself. The sheer size of her breasts, however, which were too large to cup in her hands, didn't seem to matter very much at the moment. Moans were beginning to spill from Ethel's lips. Moans which, during other circumstances, she would have tried to stifle. The sounds of her own enjoyment embarrassed her. Everything about her body embarrassed her, but maybe it was time she overcame her anxieties. She was already 21, for goodness sake. If she didn't learn how to like herself, how could anybody else? Can I get an amen? That was what Clementine had said during their last and most explosive argument. I'm trying to be here for you, Clementine had said, her face blotchy with emotion. But how can I when you always push me away? I tell you that I like you, but it never sticks. It's like you're determined to hate yourself. How am I supposed to love you when you're always so negative? It's such a drag. I've been doing my best, but Ethel didn't want to think about Clementine, not right now. She'd far rather think of the girl. Her ex-girlfriend was now a blip of a half-recalled memory on her radar, and Ethel soon shut these thoughts down, terminating them with the finality she used to stop herself from dwelling on her thesis. It was better to forget, to drift away inside her own memories, to daydream.
She's imagining the girl.
Ada!
Holy shit! Wait, the sound!
She'd hated herself for far too long. Why couldn't she love herself now? What was so wrong about that? The girl at the church had said Ethel was cute. She called her adorable. She seemed to think that Ethel was worth loving, and Ethel could only hope that they would be able to see one another again. Otherwise, she really would be on her own. Rose is missing out. No, Rose is still here. She's just muted, so y'all can't hear her. Ethel had felt weary when she'd been walking home through the forest, but she felt even wearier after her bath. She was so fatigued she scarcely had the stamina to rise from the tub, then towel herself dry. Her arms felt too feeble to properly dry herself, so she scarcely bothered. She gave her stomach, thighs, and armpits a perfunctory wipe with the towel, but she didn't bother with her hair. She lets it fall around her shoulders, damp strands sticking to her cheeks. Ethel was so tired she could feel her torso slumping forwards as she brushed her teeth at the bathroom mirror, could feel her eyelids beginning to droop, as though she'd been caught by the same wicked spell which had so tormented Sleeping Beauty. This was a fanciful thought, however, one which made Ethel scoff. She might have fulfilled the sleeping part of the equation, but she was no beauty. She was plain, dull, and uninteresting in each and every way. It still seemed a dream that the girl had taken such a great interest in her, but she still had. Ethel clung to this thought like a talisman as she bent, her legs almost buckling beneath her, to remove the plug from the bath, and when she rose and turned off the lights in the bathroom. The girl was interested in her. She cared about her. The actions Ethel had engaged in earlier hadn't been born out of some selfish delusion. Ethel's fondness for the girl was reciprocal. The girl liked her too. Didn't that mean it was fine to think of her when she came? It was fine. Everything would be fine. Ethel had no reason to feel ashamed, which was for the best, really, given Ethel was too tired to bother with that at the moment. Do we know Ethel's thesis topic? Yes, it is romantic poetry, which is a subject that she became interested in because Clementine was interested in it. And the reason she's, or at least we think, the reason she's not working on it is because she is, now that she's broken up with Clementine, she's not interested in it anymore. Ethel padded over to her bed, dripping residual bathwater in her wake, and slid beneath the sheets. She was so sleepy. I mean, yeah, that too. She didn't engage in the ritual of tossing first this way, then that, in an attempt to get comfortable. She wasn't comfortable. Her hair was sticking wetly to the nape of her neck and her pillow, and her back was scattered with droplets which were beginning to freeze, but that was of little consequence to Ethel. It didn't slow her descent into the world of dreams. Ethel's eyelids fell shut, as they'd wanted to in the bathroom, weighed down by the sheer force of her own exhaustion. Her breathing began to even out. Then, less than a minute she'd drawn the sheets about her. She fell fast asleep. It is the third day. Oh, I just noticed the title of the game is changing. That's cool. Well, if the girl keeps doing what she's doing, Ethel will surely have something to write. Oh, when I say romantic, I mean like the romantic era, not romantic as in love. Ethel felt weary when she awoke the following morning. But was it the morning? Ethel's curtains were ajar. She must have forgotten to close them last night. And the lights which filtered in had a butterscotch sort of tint granted by the encroaching evening. Must have been past midday at least, for the daylight to take on such a burnished caramel sort of a color. But Ethel was rather more preoccupied with the dull, heavy aching of her limbs and the humming in the back of her skull than she was the exact hour. Sleeping was supposed to be a restorative act, but Ethel didn't feel particularly soothed upon waking. It would have been an exaggeration, in fact, to say that she felt rather wretched. There was a foul taste in the back of her throat, one which reminded her of her mother's moldy cherry pie, and her bones hurt, her ribs and her wrists, and even the individual phalanges of her fingers. Ethel could breathe without any complications, but her stomach was churning so uncomfortably, she might very well have been out on a dinghy in the Atlantic Sea. Maybe she was getting sick. Did she have a fever? Ethel didn't feel hot, though. If anything, her skin felt uncomfortably cold and clammy. Maybe because she'd fallen asleep without properly drying her hair the night before. Ethel had long hair, though it was more owing to necessity than choice. Ethel didn't like going to the hairdressers. She found the thought of engaging in small talk with strangers a terrifying one. And in any case, there was something uncomfortably intimate about the thought of letting a stranger run their fingers through her hair. Ethel didn't like it when other people brushed her hair either. It made her feel tense. Ethel kept her hair long because she didn't want anybody else touching it, didn't want anybody cutting it. But she didn't trust herself enough to cut it either. Ethel's hand-eye coordination was good enough when it came to playing the violin, but it evaporated when it came to her appearance. It was why Ethel never wore makeup either, despite her mother's best attempts to teach her. Lorna tried to show Ethel the benefits of foundation, eyeliner, and lip gloss, but Ethel never taken to it. The one time she tried to apply eyeliner, she poked herself in the eye with the pencil. Her eye had watered horribly from that encounter and had been swollen for 2 days afterwards. Eek! Shania teased Ethel about her eye at school because of course she had, and she called her a cyclops, which was a bit of a highfalutin insult coming from a girl like Shania, but they had been studying the Odyssey in English. Mrs. Pritt would have been happy to know that at least some of her lessons had stuck, if nothing else. Shania felt very long away now, however, as Ethel sat in her bed that not morning. Shania and Mrs. Pritt and secondary school in general. The back of Ethel's head was throbbing. Why did she feel so tired? Ethel might have gone to sleep late, but she knew she'd slept for a long time. She couldn't remember having any bad dreams either. She hadn't awoken in the middle of the night covered in sweat, a scream burgeoning on her lips like a put-upon heroine from a gothic novel. With a Twilight reference. She had slept so soundly, instead she might have been the dead, an unmoving corpse. Christ, Ethel felt as cold as a corpse. It was chilly outdoors, but it should have been relatively warm in her room. Why then were her teeth chattering? Ethel forced herself to sit up, though this took much more effort than it should have. With bleary, half-lidded eyes, she looked around her room, which wasn't her room, not anymore. Ethel thought, or hoped rather, that she might regain some strength if she tried to regulate her breathing, but... Ethel coughed. She could feel her chest convulsing, gripped with a sudden paroxysm which brought tears to her eyes. There was a bitter, bilious taste in the back of her mouth. It tasted foul, like something dredged from the depths of a lake. Ethel raised one hand, which was trembling, to her mouth as she continued to cough, her body shaking feebly, like an autumnal leaf in the chill. More hacking coughs escaped Ethel's throat, more dry, rasping wheezes. It wouldn't have been too surprising if she'd come down with a cold, given she'd been spending so much time outdoors at night, surrounded by the pervasive chill of the winter months. But this cold didn't feel like the natural consequences of her admittedly foolish actions.
It's okay, Ethel, just a tonsil stone. Come on, hack up the hairball.
Thank you for the $5.
And kissing people you don't know. Yeah.
How could she have a cold when she didn't have a temperature? Ethel's arms and legs were weary, that much was true, but her forehead felt quite cool as did her armpits. She wasn't sweating. What was going on? Ethel rode out her coughing fit as best she could, her eyelids squeezed shut. The back of her head was throbbing and she felt sick. It took only 30 seconds, if that, for Ethel's coughing fit to wane, but it felt like far longer. 30 seconds is a long time, though. When she finally finished, Ethel felt enervated, completely drained of her energy. Weakly, she drew back her hand, which she'd used instinctively to cover her mouth. Are we getting the thumbnail? There'd been no reason, she supposed, to press her hand to her mouth, given she was all alone. There was nobody here she could pass her cold on to. Consideration was a learned habit, however, one which had been ingrained into Ethel through her uncomfortable, awkward years spent around other humans. There were worse habits one could get into, and there was no shame in being too conscientious. Ethel straightened her back, feeling a little calmer, then glanced down.
There it is! The thumbnail!
Oh hey, is that the thumbnail?
Oh my god, everybody, it's the thumbnail!
Oh my god! Anyways, what did I miss?
You weren't here?
I was eating dinner.
Oh, I thought you were like here for it though.
Oh.
Ethel talked about how much she hates her body, but it doesn't matter. She gooned in the bath.
Hashtag your things.
She gooned in the bath. I woke up the next morning with a really bad sickness, but it's not like... But she's sick with like she's freezing cold instead of like having a fever. Anyway, it's the thumbnail!
No.
Her right palm, which had been pressed to her mouth during her convulsions, felt a little damp. It was spittle, most likely, from all of her coughing. That was what Ethel assumed, at least with a wrinkle of her nose. But when Ethel actually saw what stained her palm, she stared. There was nothing so incongruous as spittle after all, and neither was it the decidedly more unpleasant, but still reassuringly mundane, phlegm. Ethel's palm was stained black, just like tar. What in the world was that? Where'd it come from? The only logical explanation was that it had come from Ethel herself, but how? Why? Ethel didn't feel quite like herself, but she couldn't see any reason why she would start hacking up this... whatever this was. There was a strange black sludge smeared across her fair skin, and that wasn't all. There were white spores mixed amongst it, cloudy and clumpy like freshly fallen snow. Ethel had no idea what these spores were, but she recognized the small, skinny objects with the rounded heads, which curled like commas amongst the filth. They were mushrooms. Ethel stared at her palm, her heart hammering wildly in her chest. Part of her hoped, if she kept on staring, the strange black blemish on her palm would disappear. But this soon proved to be wishful thinking. It didn't vanish. Tightly, Ethel shut her eyes. She counted to 5. Then she opened them. The stain was persistent, however, and it refused to shift. The black ooze, the white spores, and the little mushrooms remained, all mixed up in a gooey substance which must have been her own saliva. Was this some sort of medical emergency? Ethel had been fortunate never to suffer from health complications so prominent she'd been admitted to the hospital, but she had suffered a few cuts and scrapes in her time. A particularly unfortunate incident with a pair of roller skates when she'd been 8 years old had resulted in quite the nasty gash on her left knee, a gash which had bled profusely. Ethel's knee had been sticky with gore following that little incident, but the blood which had spurted from her perforated skin had been scarlet. Its pigmentation had been so very bright it had been almost garish. This strange fluid smeared across Ethel's palm was nothing like that, however. It couldn't have been blood. It wasn't red. It looked more like motor oil, but that didn't make any sense. Why would she be coughing up oil of all things? It didn't just sound unhealthy, it sounded inhuman. If Ethel had been an inorganic girl, perhaps, made of steel and bolted together with screws, this might have been possible. But Ethel was wholly human, at least as far as she was aware. Her skin was soft and her flesh was quite yielding. She was weak, delicate even, but she was definitely a human. There was no reason why she ought to be vomiting up oil. There was no reason why she ought to be vomiting up anything. She might have felt sick, but she wasn't that sick. Not physically, at least. Mentally, however, Ethel wasn't sure, and that scared her even more.
Question, by the way.
Yes?
Are we like finishing the game today, or
Absolutely not. I'm nearing my
Okay.
limit, so... so
do you
we'll-
want to like leave it here?
This actually isn't a bad place to stop. I mean, we got the thumbnail, so... And
We got the thumbnail.
We've been playing for about
We've
2
been playing
hours.
for 2 hours.
Yeah, which is about how long
Yeah.
we did
And
last
and I
time.
guess the third part is going to be the last part. So
Yeah, this is the 3rd day, so,
yeah,
and we only have 3 days.
final day.
Dawn of the final day.
24 hours remain.
I love how like she just look at her hands and she's like, "Should I go to the hospital?"
Nah.
Nah.
Amazing stream as always. Thank you. Bing bong.
3 days. Sounds like another Mushroom Girl game. Wait, now that you mention it, wait, they're both 3 days!
Lovely stream. Thank you. Alright.
Thank you, host, for joining me, even though the Mushroom Girl ended up just making out with us the whole time, so you didn't get to speak that much.
It's okay. No, you know when they were like making out, I was like, please don't make the mushroom girl whimper. Please don't make the whimper. Please. And it was only you. I was like, thank God.
No,
Thank fucking
please.
God.
I was like, ugh. Seeing that and thinking, nah, I don't need the hospital. Are we sure this is in America? No, there is this thing with like British people where like even though healthcare is free, sometimes they're just like, oh no, this is really life-threatening. Anyway, I think I'll just won't bother. Yeah.
Just snogging. Just snogging. Anyway, any final words, Rose, before we head out?
I love mushrooms.
I also love mushroom women.
Ah, yes.
Ugh.
Please, one. Listen. At least if you're going to die, like die in like the hottest way possible. And what's the hottest way possible?
Wait.
I'm a mushroom girl. Listen.
Wait, I just realized the
Yeah?
description that I put on this live stream.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll get spores in our lungs this time? We did! We got spores in
We
our
did!
lungs! I'm so good at this.
You're so good at this.
Anyway, thank you everybody so much for joining us for Mushroom Girl. And with that, we will see y'all next time. Rose and I are both free for a day. And we will try to finish the game next time. So it'll be one more day. It'll be a lot of yapping from me and then Rose sexy Mushroom Girl voice. And then...
Yeah, true.
You do have the perfect voice for her though. Like I'm just convinced. You have such
I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, you have such a nice quality, so... Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. I will see y'all next time. And with that, good night.